What's a small act of kindness you'll never forget? The stranger at the bus stop, a warmth I didn't know I needed. I was 19, stranded between the version of myself I thought I'd be and the one I'd become. A year earlier, I had been a full-time college student English major, working part-time shelving books at the campus library. I remember thinking life was stable, predictable, manageable. Then things fell apart. First came the tuition hike, then my financial aid was cut. Then my mother lost her job. I tried to hang on, picked up extra shifts, slept less, ate cheaper, but it wasn't enough. I dropped out halfway through the spring semester. 2 weeks later, my 2001 Toyota Corolla stopped running, on the side of the highway, during a rainstorm. That's when I officially ran out of backup plans. By winter, I was working full-time at a grocery store, a job I was grateful to have, but which barely covered rent and not much else. And that's how I ended up waiting at the bus stop that night. It was late 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday, and Minnesota winter doesn't care what day it is. The temperature was somewhere around zero. The wind was sharp enough to shave your skin down to bone if you stood still too long. I was wrapped in a thrift store coat that had a mysterious stain on one sleeve, and a zipper that only worked if I held it a certain way. My shoes had holes in the soles. My fingers were burning from the cold, and I hadn't brought gloves. I was alone, standing on the cracked concrete beside a metal bench that seemed to radiate frost. There was nothing around but white noise, breath clouds, and the ache of exhaustion. My phone was dead, so I stared at the road. Waiting. That's when he appeared. An older man, maybe late 70s, trudging toward the stop with a slow but steady pace. He was bundled in a thick wool coat, flannel scarf, and a hat that looked hand-knitted. He carried a canvas bag over his shoulder, the kind people use when they've been avoiding plastic bags since the 90s. He nodded when he reached the bench. I gave a half smile, that universal expression for, I don't feel like talking, but I'm trying to be polite. He didn't sit. He stood a few feet away, looking down the street, breathing a little heavy from the cold. After a moment, he said, "Long day?" "Yep," I answered. I tried to keep it short. He nodded as if he'd expected that. "You look like you've had 100 of those." That surprised me. I gave a weak laugh. Feels like it. He asked where I worked. I told him about the grocery store, about working late shifts because I didn't have seniority yet. He asked why I wasn't in school anymore. I told him about the tuition, the loan, the car. He listened without interrupting. That's what stood out most. He listened, like he cared. Then he asked, "So what's the dream?" I remember staring at the ground for a moment, at the frozen gum stains and salt-crusted slush. And I said, "I don't even know anymore. I feel like everything's just on pause." He nodded slowly, the way people do when they've been there. And then he said something I'll never forget. Sometimes life waits to start until you're cold enough to fight for it. We went quiet after that, just the wind and the sound of cars passing in the distance. He shifted slightly and asked, "Your hands cold?" I almost lied but couldn't. Yeah, really cold. He reached into his coat and pulled out a pair of gloves, thick, dark green wool. They looked handmade, too. Worn, but cared for. "Take these," he said simply. I tried to refuse. "I can't take your gloves. You need them." He shook his head. "I've got another pair at home, and you're colder than I am. Can't fix everything, but this I can fix." I took them. They were warm not from the wool, but from him. Like he'd been wearing them minutes before and decided, "You matter enough." I put them on. They were a little big, but they fit just fine. The bus finally appeared, headlights cutting through the cold, engine growling. As it pulled up, he tapped me lightly on the shoulder. "Take care of yourself," he said. "And when you remember the dream, go after it."